as a collective group, that group of McNeil, Dielman, Hardwick, Goff, and Olivea, what can you say to best describe those guys up front?
I would say those guys they were the hard hat guys. Like those are the guys. Like you think about blue collar guys that get up in the morning early, before the crack of dawn. They pack their lunch. In fact, they already have their lunch packed at night. So when they get up in the morning, they just gonna grab that joker and they're off to work. And as soon as they get out their car, they put that hard hat on because they know it's time to go to work. That's how I characterize those guys. Never wanted the credit, but you can depend on them. And they were the guys that were my bodyguards, lead me wherever I needed to go. And I always knew that they would show up. I always knew they would.
When it comes to great offenses, the linemen are often the ones least talked about. And it was no different in 2006. LaDainian Tomlinson was putting together an MVP season, and new starting quarterback Phillip Rivers led an offense that could seemingly score at will. But someone had to keep those guys standing upright.
McNeil, Dielman, Hardwick, Goff, and Olivea. These are the men that built a fortress around the Chargers offense and set the tone to push opponents around. In this episode, we'll explore how this group came of age together in the mid-2000s and developed into a unit that helped make history. For Chris Hayre, I'm Haley Elwood. This is Running for History, Episode 4, The Offensive Line, presented by Lazy Dog.
San Diego Chargers select LaDainian Tomlinson.
Touchdown, LT! LaDainian Tomlinson, one step closer to football immortality. And the handoff to Tomlinson, and he will gallop into the end zone. Charger fans are witnesses to history!
Hey everyone, Lazy Dog Restaurants is spreading holiday cheer with these fun DIY gingerbread house kits to take home. It's so fun because they've partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and 100% of the net proceeds from gingerbread houses sold will help build homes in our community. The kits come with literally everything you need, from icing to gumdrops and lots of other candies to build the best looking house. I personally cannot wait to make mine with my family and friends, and you can see what it's all about at lazydogrestaurants.com. There's an adage in the NFL that usually when you hear an offensive lineman's name on a broadcast, it means something went wrong. But in the mid-2000s, the members of the Chargers offensive line became household names for the right reason, helping guide one of the most prolific offenses in football. That all culminated in 2006. The Chargers were a team that could score easily and often, and as Antonio Gates recalled, none of it would have happened without those guys up front.
Man, they are, to me, they are the reason that things happen for myself, for a guy like LaDainian, for a guy like Phillip, for a guy like, those are the true warriors to me. And I appreciate them a whole lot. I'm sure, a guy like LaDainian and Phillip and those guys who've always dealt with them consistently due to the positions that they played, they are the reason why we won. It's very simple. We were the ones who got the glory, and we were the ones that's catching and running the touchdowns and throwing the touchdowns, but they are the reasons why we won, and they are the ultimate reason why you win football games in the NFL, because of the guys like Marcus and Dielman and Goff and obviously Nick Hardwick. Those are the front runners to me in terms of any good team, is the guys up front.
Good offenses start in the trenches. It's the dirty work that pays dividends on the ground or through the air. The bond that was built between the Chargers offensive linemen and skill position players was key to making the unit click. Just ask Chargers owner Dean Spanos.
Well, I truly believe your identity starts with the offensive line on any team. It always has in my mind. And there was a great deal of respect, obviously, between them and LT. LT took care of them. I'm sure he took them out to dinner a lot of times. But there was a special bond there between them.
So now that we've gotten the vibe of the line, let's break down the 5 guys that comprised it. Kris Dielman joined the Chargers in 2003 as an undrafted free agent out of Indiana. Signing with San Diego meant he was reunited with his former Hoosier head coach and current Chargers offensive coordinator at the time, Cam Cameron. Cameron and the Bolts decided to convert Dielman from defensive lineman to guard, and not before long, he cemented himself as a starter on the left side.
I was more, it took everything I had. Like that, for me to focus and to pick it up and to learn it. Cause learning the O-line is not an easy gig. You gotta have a lot of luck. You have to have a lot of hard work and luck just with injuries and whatnot. But having Hardwick and Marcus on either side of me was a great balance for me to keep me within the lines. We were all really intelligent. I mean, some more than others, but we all were pretty smart. We all knew the offense. We all knew what was going on.
But as good as he was technically, Dielman was also the enforcer, bringing nasty toughness and grit week in and week out. Need proof? Let's hear from a couple guys who played with him. Left tackle Marcus McNeill and center Nick Hardwick.
Man, Kris is like the best guy to have with you going into battle. He's one of those guys who, if I was in a bar fight and it's just me and him versus 30 people, I feel like me and him can go. That's how much confidence Kris Dielman gives you because, one, he's not scared to stick his nose in there, and two, he's not scared to throw a punch. So when you got somebody like that, I mean, it was like the best 1-2 punch that we could have. We almost felt like we were tag team wrestlers out there. And that's my brother. I actually just saw him yesterday. And we just went to war with each other. We went to war with each other every weekend and week out, and Kris was one of those guys who he's gonna bring that type of intensity and you just gotta match it. He's gonna bring that hard nose, let's go. And I don't care who you are lined up against me. And me, I'm not gonna back down from anybody either. So I think we just kind of, were perfect for each other. He come in low, I'm coming in high, and we just having a good time out there, rocking and rolling.
We never lost our brutal nature up front. And I think a lot of it was because we had some super brutal guys. I mean, Kris Dielman was a brutal football player, and he set the tone up front.
Dielman's physicality was unmatched, and there was nothing he loved more than making contact and knocking his man off the ball. But as much as he loved it, so too did his running back.
One guy, Kris Dielman, the one thing I remember most about Kris Dielman, he said this a lot. He was, at different times in the game, he would start to head to the line of scrimmage after we called the play. He would stop, turn around and look at me right in my face to face, and say, "Follow me." And how could I not? Somebody with that type of passion, determination, he knows he's gonna win. And if he has that much confidence that he's gonna win and he's gonna kick his guy's butt, then who am I to not run behind that guy? I had the utmost confidence every time in Kris Dielman on that left side because I knew he was gonna move people.
I loved pulling. So 40 power was when I would pull around and Goff and Clary would double team up to linebacker. I loved pulling because, man, it's gonna hurt. When you go run around there full speed and you run into some big over on the other side, it's gonna hurt. Is it gonna hurt me or is it gonna hurt you? And who's it gonna hurt more? So I wanted to inflict as much pain on you. So when you hit someone clean, like you don't hurt.
So much as a runner, you think about anyway, because obviously you're the last one back there. You're looking at all these guys on the other side of the ball that are trying to take your head off. So, you have so much that you're thinking about, but at the same time, it's really all about reaction. As the play goes, it's reaction. But if I have that, my last thought, if it's Kris Dielman telling me, follow me, that naturally, unconsciously, I guess you're gonna look at him. You're gonna follow him because that's the last thought in your mind before all chaos happens.
Dielman was the tone setter, and as he said, learning a new position meant he had to overcome a bit more each snap than his neighbors, like the naturally gifted Marcus McNeill.
I think we were really athletic up front. Dielman coming from a defensive lineman. Nick Hardwick, he was smaller, but he was super quick, super strong. We had Shane Olivea, who was there, he was a smaller tackle, but his feet work was impeccable, and he could get off the line like no other. And then you round that off with Mike Goff, who was a tough son of a beat for himself, you know, the whole time, and kind of the veteran of the crew. I think we had that leadership and some of that veterans ability with Mike Goff. And then from there on, we had a bunch of young guys who were just ready to go out there and compete and just weren't scared of nobody.
Hey everyone, Lazy Dog Restaurants is spreading holiday cheer with these fun DIY gingerbread house kits to take home. It's so fun because they've partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and 100% of the net proceeds from gingerbread houses sold will help build homes in our community. The kits come with literally everything you need, from icing to gumdrops and lots of other candies to build the best looking house. I personally cannot wait to make mine with my family and friends, and you can see what it's all about at lazydogrestaurants.com. Part of the beauty of this Chargers offensive line was how seamlessly the mix of younger players and older veterans gelled together. So now, let's focus on one of the latter in right guard, Mike Goff. When Goff arrived in San Diego as a free agent in 2004, he was entering his 7th season in the league and came to the Chargers wanting to be part of a team that could make some noise. Joining a team that was set on building a winning culture was also key, so he teamed up with a coach who felt similarly.
I knew so much about Coach Schottenheimer for all those years in Cleveland, when he was in Kansas City, and you just, when you got a chance to just meet him in person, you got a sense of he was a genuine coach. And I think sometimes when you meet someone, you can tell whether they're being genuine or not. And he just had that thing about him that you knew he cared. You knew he loved football. You knew he wanted to win. And you knew everything that he was talking about was the truth. And I think when you surround yourself by someone like that, it really does give you the opportunity to say, hey, I could learn a lot from a man who's been around for many years. He's been around the sport a long time. And just to get a chance to, because to me, it had nothing to do about San Diego. The weather or anything like that, 17 years later, I'm obviously still here, but it was about buying into what Coach Schottenheimer was selling. And he said, we didn't have a good year. We accept that we had a bad year. We understand that 4-12 isn't good enough, but we need to change it. We need people like you. We got your buddy Lorenzo Neal here. We got your buddy Steve Foley here. We got other guys that your buddy Tim DeWhite's here. We got guys that on this team, and we can make this something special. And I think at that moment when he said that, that resonated in my brain that this could be something special. It didn't hurt that they put me on the phone with LT, and LT said, hey, we could do something special too. That didn't hurt things. That definitely helped. But I think that just him being passionate about it and him being sincere about it really just leads you to believe that, yes, I believe what you're saying, and yes, I'm going to come here, and yes, I will do everything I can to help you win.
I tell you, when he first got there, I felt like we had just got a piece that would make the offensive line come together. Having him on the other side of Nick, and obviously being strong, those front three spots, center and both guards, big guys that can move people off the line. Goff was really good at obviously pulling.
The 28-year-old Goff was at a stage in his career where he not only brought a physical presence to the offensive line, but his mental acumen was unmatched.
And Goff was so good at pulling through the hole and really finding those linebackers and getting those key blocks. And not to mention that the guy was super smart. He was always, I don't know if he ever made a mistake. Whenever you think about if someone jumped off sides or somebody missed their block or a blitz or something, it never was Goff, because the guy was a solid pro. He understood his strengths and weaknesses, and he was just kind of one of those glue guys that kept us together.
Dielman was in his 2nd season when Goff joined the Bolts and was still very much learning how to play guard at the highest level. Goff, who had seen a lot of football, was now a mentor to show Dielman the way and discussed how he never saw his younger counterpart as competition.
Golfer was like that savvy veteran, man. He'd been there for a while. didn't say a whole lot, but man, he's smart as a whip, dude. He knew his stuff. He'd been in there. He knew how to get his hands in there and get the job done. And he was a good veteran presence in there, so you could see how to learn how to be a professional. So Goff was like a nice veteran, kind of showing the young pups, you know, not somewhat showing us, but he was a good example of how to make it, how to last.
Some people look at when they bring in younger guys as a threat to your job and a threat to you. I didn't want to look at it like that, because in my first year where I was before San Diego, I remember one of the older guys asked him if he would show me something, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "No, because I don't want you to take my job." And that was the end of the conversation. And I kind of made a little vow to myself at that time that I wasn't going to go and do that. I wasn't going to be that person, because if I'm not good enough, then I shouldn't be playing.
While Goff joined the Chargers knowing he would be one of the key veteran voices on the field, he didn't expect to impact Dielman's life so much off of it. Goff not only took Dielman under his wing, but under his own roof in the Pacific Beach neighborhood of San Diego.
You know, I lived with Goff for like 3 years in his basement. So him and I were like brothers. Like, I mean, he was a phenomenal cook. I mean, that's how I met PB. I mean, I fell in love with PB after living in his basement. But that's definitely a good big part how we all kind of grew up together. And, you know, that was a special time. That was a special group. Missed it a lot.
I think anytime you can break bread with people that you care for, and even if, you know, anytime you can just get together and have a meal, have some beers, have some wine, have some dessert, it makes things better. And one of the highlights I enjoyed doing was in particular Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. Just usually get deep fried turkey and have people just bring something and just getting together, because I was single at the time, and a lot of the guys were single, so you really didn't have anywhere else to go. So just to get everyone together and just be together outside of the facility, and I think you get a chance to know people, know their story, know what they're about, and I think again that just kind of builds to when you get to know somebody on a personal level, it makes you want to not let them down.
So if you're keeping score at home, we've got the enforcer in Kris Dielman and the savvy vet in Mike Goff. But Goff wasn't the only core member of the 2006 Chargers offensive line that joined the team in 2004. The Chargers drafted 2 promising blockers that year, including a physical 7th-round tackle out of Ohio State, Shane Olivea.
Shane Olivea, the wild man. You know, he was the wild man of the group. But the one thing about him, he was the nastiest, next to Kris Dielman, he was the nastiest lineman that we had. Like, he absolutely wanted to dominate you. And honestly, he might have been the most gifted, you know, quiet as kept, because he wasn't a big, tall guy, but he was able to run block. He was able to pass block. He was athletic. He had strong hands. He can drive you off the ball. Olivea could do everything. And, you know, I love the guy because he enjoyed his job, and you knew he enjoyed it. There was times where, you know, he would get so pumped up and he would just start screaming out there after he dominates somebody. And as a runner, you know, that's what you call imposing your will. That's what we enjoyed doing, was imposing our will. And Shane Olivea would do that often. He would oftentimes be the first person imposing his will during the game.
In the 3rd round of that same year, the Chargers drafted the future anchor of their offensive line, Nick Hardwick. The Purdue center was raw. He hadn't even played high school football and instead won a state championship in wrestling. But he decided to walk on to the Boilermakers squad, where he eventually cemented himself as the team's starting center. Once he got to the NFL, his limited physical experience wasn't noticeable because mentally he was a step ahead, according to Dielman.
We all were pretty smart. We all knew the offense. We all knew what was going on. But Hardwick knew it better than anybody. And the way he could direct, like if Hardwick overrules something, you went with Hardwick. I see something, but Hardwick says it, I'll go with Nick. So the term, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. Well, Hardwick was the cook, all right? So whatever Hardwick said, we're going to go with that one. And the way him and Philip would work with each other throughout the game was amazing. But you saw that when you would watch in the meetings and how they would communicate there.
As Hardwick himself remembers, he had great mentors on the Chargers staff and team who helped him become so cerebral with the game.
2004, having Hudson Houck as an offensive line coach for me was instrumental in my development as a guy coming into the National Football League. I think I had like 14, 15 starts in college. I didn't know anything. I didn't play high school football. And so he gave me a great foundation to work from, technically, how to study, how to look at defenses. And then I really do have to go back and give Roman Oben a bunch of kudos to all of us young guys, really, because when he came in, he forced us to develop great study habits. And so did Hudson Houck. Hudson would put us on the board and make us draw defenses and draw plays against them, which then would take us from training camp, and we'd go home as a rookie and he would tell me, you need to study 2 extra hours tonight at 10 p.m. So I'd study from 10 to midnight every single night as a rookie just to make sure that that information was in there. And then he would test us the next day.
Yeah, well, Nick was the captain. You know, he was the guy that we looked to make all the calls. You know, he was the professor, if you will. You know, but at the same time, he was this bad dude that really took care of everybody else. You know, he did his job, but he did other guys' job as well. And the thing about Nick, had a great relationship with everybody on the offense. He can talk to everybody. And it wasn't just, you know, talking, it was really getting to know each and every man on that team, and especially on the offensive unit. But, you know, he was the glue that kept us all together. He was the main key on our offense.
Hey everyone, Lazy Dog Restaurants is spreading holiday cheer with these fun DIY gingerbread house kits to take home. It's so fun because they've partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and 100% of the net proceeds from gingerbread houses sold will help build homes in our community. The kits come with literally everything you need, from icing to gumdrops and lots of other candies to build the best looking house. I personally cannot wait to make mine with my family and friends, and you can see what it's all about at lazydogrestaurants.com. Marcus McNeill was the fifth and final piece of that famed 2006 offensive line who came to the Bolts in that year's draft. Normally, a left tackle is tasked with protecting a quarterback's blind side, but the Auburn prospect was no stranger to protecting elite runners as well, as he helped Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams reach 1,000 yards and double-digit score seasons in college. Now, he had the chance to do the same for LT, and he did it with a personality to boot.
I was already excited to be able to block for a back who was, you know, already MVP caliber athlete and running back. So I was just excited to meet him in the locker room. You know, the first time I met him in the locker room, I remember just being there like, man, I play with him on Madden, you know.
Well, Mac was definitely the clown. Like, between him and Nick, them two were the funniest dudes you could have to meet.
Well, Marcus was, you know, we consider him the cool young kid. You know, he has sweet feet, you know, he can run, he was pretty, you know, but at the same time, he was nasty. You know, he wanted to embarrass you, and he wanted to, you know, get you to a point where he'll just be laughing at you because, you know, he's dominating you. And, you know, Marcus would always obviously defer to the older guys on the line. But man, he was such a great tackle. He was passionate about, you know, his job, and he was always there, you know, in practice. He loved to practice, and he kept it loose. I think at times where, you know, we had so many serious guys on our offensive line, Marcus was one of the guys that really kept it loose and kept it fun. And even sometimes when we'll be in the huddle and everybody be serious, Marcus would crack a joke and make everybody laugh. So he was that type of guy.
Lining up next to McNeil on every snap, Dielman was passionate about the punishment he could deliver with the rookie at his side. At 6'7", the athlete named Big Mac was the ideal complement to Dielman. and the perfect guy on the left side of that offensive line.
I love double teaming with Marcus. Marcus being so much taller than I am, I could get down low, and Marcus, that helped Marcus because he could come in and we would move these 3 techniques, and that's your will. Like I want to beat your ass. Like I want to get you. I got to move you out of here. We're gonna get you. They know we're gonna do a double team on you, and yet our technique, our grit is just not going to stop us. We're still we're going to do this, and we're still going to push your ass 15 yards over there. And then Goff comes around, LT pops out, and boom, we got another big run.
During that 2006 season, McNeil earned Offensive Rookie of the Month honors and was never called for holding. A big reason he had such a stellar rookie year at left tackle was because of the faith his head coach had in him. For Mac, it didn't matter that he was the youngest of the bunch. Schottenheimer's one-play-at-a-time mentality resonated with him and helped him take his game to new heights.
My best story about Marty was he pulled me to the side. We were just walking to meetings, and he just kind of pulled me to the side, and he tells me that, Marcus, I know you're going to give up a sack. I know it. Like, it's going to be a play. You're going to say it. Something's going to happen. You're going to give up a sack. I'm not worried about that play. I'm more worried about how you're going to approach the next play. So whatever happens, I need you to put that behind you and then go and attack the next play. And that just lifted such a weight off my shoulder. I already had the bag of chips on my shoulder. So when he lifted that weight off my shoulder to where I felt like I had to be perfect, things had to be flawless for me to be able to start at left tackle or be able to play at a high level. Like it took me from being a little bit slowed down or slowing my pace down to make sure that I could be perfect to just going out and playing, balls to the wall, just straight as fast as I can go, put my foot on the gas pedal and go.
So now all 5 pieces of the offensive line are in place, and it was on them to dominate. And dominate they did. For Hardwick, the offensive line worked every day to play in the image of their leader and complement the philosophy that was Marty Ball.
Marty did not overcomplicate the game of football. And I don't think the game needs to be that overcomplicated. And I guess what he did was, the philosophy is simple, right? It's one play at a time. Hit him in the mouth, man. And that was it. And you're just going to have to hit him in the mouth, hit him in the mouth, hit him in the mouth. And eventually we're going to be able to impose our will on you, which ultimately, when we boil football down, that's what it is. Yes, we got to be good tactically. Yes, we have to be good technically. But how can I find a way to break your will? At the end of the day, in the fourth quarter, I got a sign over here that says, we do our job with a monotonous consistency day in and day out, one play at a time. Then in the fourth quarter, we impose our will. And that was kind of the offensive line's mantra. And that was a sign that was hanging up there. But that was Marty. Keep it close. And in the fourth quarter, we're going to step on the gas. We're going to crush them. And that's why we were so tough. And Marty never let us get away with anything in practice. We would be halfway through practice and the defense would be getting beat, and he was fed up with it, and he'd start the whole thing over. Start it over. It's like, oh, we're halfway through this deal, and we're going back to warm-ups, and we're going to go back. And that was just, he was relentless on the details, and mostly he was relentless on the intensity and where that needed to be on a daily basis, because he knew that when the time came, that intensity was going to be most important.
So along with protecting Phillip Rivers, this group had to open lanes for LT. A group like the offensive line can't survive if all 5 guys aren't on the same page, but they also won't survive if they can't communicate with their playmakers. That was never a problem working with LT.
Oh yeah, there was LT. You could tell when LT didn't like to play. If we were running some form of outside zone, LT really didn't have that. That kind of love for it. He would make it work because he was an unbelievable running back, but LT was the master at figuring out the power. And I think that if we didn't run it enough, just like anything else, if you don't get something that you want, you kind of get a little pissy about it. And I think that there were times where he I don't want to run that play. I want to run this play. And we as offensive linemen said, yes, we want to run that play too. And so I think that you look at the offensive coordinators we had in Cam Cameron, North Turner, Clarence Shellman, those guys, they all understood what we were good at doing. But I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to make us more than just one-dimensional and just running power right, power left. And I think that at the end of the day, they knew, just like we knew, that it was time to start running power if we weren't enough. And LT had no problem telling people, hey, I don't know why we're running this play. We need to be running this. So lo and behold, then we started running that.
You know, LT knew what he was good at, that's for sure. He loved running power, obviously. And I 50 slant was probably my second favorite play. And that's just a me versus you, move him out. LT knows exactly how I'm going to block it. He knows what's going to happen. And he would call it. Let me get off of this cut. Let me get off of this side. And with him being vocal about that, that puts us in the right play. And he knows what plays he's good at. We know what plays we're good at. And thank God that matched up. And those were the plays that we all were good at. And that's the ones that you saw him breaking off these runs. And, with LT, the best part about him is he never fumbled. He never fumbled. So, and if he did, it was very rare. And so, as hard as you're working, there's nothing worse than busting your ass and then he gets a run and fumbles. The ball security with LT was also huge.
Communicating with his line is a skill Tomlinson had a lot of practice at, and it was something he worked on his entire career. Just ask David Bobo, who blocked for him at TCU.
He was vocal back then too. I mean, now whether the coaches would listen to him back then, it probably wasn't until our senior year that it really was a collective effort. He would say, hey, if we do this, I really think we can get it done. And like I was saying, that feel that he had, it really worked.
I thought it was important at different times to watch film together as a running backs group and an offensive line group, so we can talk about plays, run plays. I wanted them to know, in certain run plays, what my thought process was, how I like to run the play. And we would talk through certain plays, I think that just helped us build, a better connection of, I guess, when it became, deep in the fourth quarter, when we needed a play, we didn't have to think about, what we'd like to run. We all knew. So if they call 40 power, they knew what I was thinking on 40 power. I knew exactly what they were thinking in terms of, I know Mike Goff, and I know Nick Hardwick, 40 power, they like to hold that double team a little bit longer. Kris Dielman doesn't. But Mike Goff, he likes to hold it. So I need to be a little bit more patient, with this play. Things like that, is what you learn in the film room, and then you translate it over into the games. So I always thought that was very important that we both understood each other.
Every snap that unit played was done in hopes of punishing their opponent and giving Tomlinson an opportunity to make a play.
It might not always start pretty, and sometimes people are going to have a good game plan, but you weren't going to abandon it. You were going to keep grinding. You were going to keep chopping. You were going to keep doing everything that you had to do to go win the game, and you were going to do it running the ball. And I think that was just you take pride in it as an offensive line. And when your running back has over 150 yards at the game, you kind of grab a cold beer after the game and you say, hey, all right, we got the job done this week. On to the next.
Former San Diego Union Tribune writer Jim Trotter described the 2006 Chargers offensive line as 5 fingers that formed a fist. And that fist helped clear the way for number 21's historic season. But for the players, 2006 and all the years they spent together meant more than just celebrating wins. They celebrated each other. They were a group that grew up together, found strength within each other, and a group that is forever etched in Chargers history.
We were wild, and they loved us to be wild. Nobody really tried to hone us in, and they just said, we like this energy. We're not going to try to temper that. So we're going to use that. And I remember Roman once was like, I love playing with you kids. You remind me how fun this game's supposed to be. And he said, you give us a little bit of extra life. And that was important. And then when Marcus comes in and Clary comes in, we're all basically at life at about the same time. We're all kind of growing into this space together and meeting our wives and having kids at the same age. And we're going through the exact same phases of life together. And we were fighting on the field together. We were spending 12 hours in the meeting room and on planes and in buses and at restaurants. And it was just a perfect time scenario for all of us. And it was wonderful.
It's such a special group that, we just recently got back on a text chain, and it just is fun just catching up with them. And I think the thing that's special about us and just football in general is such a special fraternity, brotherhood, that you might not see somebody for years and you just fall right back into it. And I think that when you have that kind of relationship, you really want to play for the person next to you.
We were together for so long, you almost knew what everybody was thinking before we even did it. We didn't have to really talk at times. And some of these stages you couldn't hear anyways. So you just knew. I knew what Marcus was doing, Hardwick, and I knew what we were doing. Like, we just, as a group, we worked together very well. And I'm telling you, and we all fought it every once in a while. We all ragged each other, but we were a family and we were brothers. And we got to stay together, luckily, for 5, 6, 7 years.
And I think what we had for the 5 years that I was here was truly the best lines that I've ever been associated with.
This has been an LA Chargers production. Coming up next on Running for History, it's finally time to talk 2006, the year LaDainian Tomlinson took the league by storm. Along with the help of a new starting quarterback, we'll take a look at just how LT led the Bolts to a league-best 14-2 record and how the running back made history in the process.
It just was like every week, like the touchdown count for LT was like 4, 3, 4, 2, 4. And it's like, wow.
I mean, sometimes the practices were harder than the games because that's how much we would compete. And we had the type of guys to really get on you, right? It was a players run situation where we started practice, ended practice. There was no holding back in the locker room. It's like if a guy's not working hard, then you knew that somebody was going to get on you. LT being one, and Low Neal and some of the older guys. But that built the culture. That was a culture that we had.
As these things are happening in terms of as you're piling up the yardage, but also scoring 4 touchdowns, 1 week, 2 touchdowns. You do have a sense that, man, this is a really great year. Like something special is going on. But at the same time, you're living in a moment. And so you don't allow yourself to go there, to think about what the possibility can be. Because it's a now game. It's a moment game. It's what are you doing now? Don't look ahead. Don't look behind you. And so it's easy to say in retrospect that, yes, we knew that something special was going to happen. But honestly, we were proud just to live in the moment.
People just loved this guy. LT could have been mayor. He probably could have been governor of the state of California. He was so popular.
If you want to see more content like this, check out the link right here.